Welcome to the 11th episode of Ravenna Review, a program of stories, features, and book reviews. My name is Robert Boucheron. I will be your host for a half hour of reading aloud with illustrations and author photographs. The print magazine Ravenna Review is published 4 times a year in Charlottesville, Virginia, on the Ravenna River. I am the editor. The magazine is available in bookstores on the Main Street Mall in Charlottesville and other bookstores in Virginia. You can order a copy or a subscription from the website, ravennareview.com. Features are illustrated travel or literary articles. Book reviews are of titles you may not have heard about, from small presses and by authors who are not bestsellers. To read the books mentioned here, please visit your local bookstore, online bookseller, with a public library. Contributors to the magazine live all over the world, and they write about places far and wide. In this program, we will visit a health conference in Houston, Texas, a beach on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Chincoteague Island in Virginia, Cinderella at the court of Louis XIV, Jamaican women abroad, and the spooky village of Middlebury, Vermont. The magazine ends with the news from Hapsburg, a picturesque town in the Shenandoah Valley. At dawn, a middle-aged rose rustler meets spinster Ella Eulalia Finch at the end of a rifle. Story, Aloylicious by Lisa Johnson Mitchell. I believed in medical science, a sensible diet, moderate exercise, and in making smart choices. Aloylicious was one of those choices. Now, here I was, standing side by side at the National Convention with my upline boss. Hi, would you like to try an Aloylicious smoothie? They're great for your immune system, digestion, and... People zigzagged past, faces planted in their phones. I was the top sales associate on the team, living proof of the product, but the morning crowd was tough. The weak coffee on tap in the giant urn didn't help. Ron unpacked a box of samples and arranged them on the table. He was irritable. You're not signing up enough new accounts. Relax, I'm preparing the ground. By standing on it, maybe you need to lose 10 pounds. You should talk, I said sideways, beaming at the public. What does that mean? Ever heard of Dunlop's disease? Your stomach done lopped over your belt. He slammed the sample case shut, stood up straight, and sucked in his gut. That should give you something to work with, he said. If you run out, text me. I'll be over in the executive lounge. Bruce wants to meet before the first speaker. Ron came to the company right after high school. He was married but not averse to playing around. Rumor had it he was getting it on with Lois in shipping and receiving. Male executives clung to the old ways while women were on the rise. Janelle, for instance. She had brains, style, and an eye for talent. I've been watching your career, she told me. We should talk. I rearranged the table where Ron had dumped things in a hurry. I fanned the brochures. To join Manowell, they explained, the starter package cost $500. I borrowed money to get mine, quickly earned it back, and was hooked. I scanned the crowd and smiled until it hurt. The spray tan made my teeth look whiter in the harsh, fluorescent light of the lobby. Hello, want to try an Aloylicious smoothie? It has healing properties. Again, nothing. People wafted by like sleepwalking cattle. Hi there! Want to try something that will change your life? Or are you going straight to hell? I didn't say that last part, of course. This was hard work, but of all the gigs I'd had since the divorce, Manowell was the most lucrative. With renewed health and confidence, I was on the lookout for Ben. We met on Single Mingle, and I invited him today. Not your usual first date, but a free comp is a free comp. He texted me and said he was on his way. A man in the crowd stopped, turned his wheelchair 180 degrees, and headed my way. Andrea, I'm Ben. Ben, I said, momentarily confused. You said to look for a tall brunette surrounded by smoothies, and I did, and here I am. Oh, Ben! No mention of paralysis in our online chats, but damn, he was handsome. I mean, damn. Mahogany hair, ice blue eyes, square jaw with a 5 o'clock shadow, nice chest, no gut. He wore khaki shorts, a golf shirt, a phone hung from his belt loop, and real leather loafers. He clicked the chair into park. So, what do you got here? Story, The Bad Guests by Ed Meek. Older and retired, my wife Kate and I traveled from Boston to Portland, Oregon a few years ago. My wife's college roommate Anne lived there with her second husband, Skip. Kate emailed them we were coming, and they invited us to dinner. A year later, Skip and Anne sold their house in Portland, Oregon, and bought a house in Portland, Maine. That summer, my wife and I rented a house in Wellfleet on Cape Cod. My wife emailed Anne to invite them to stay with us for a weekend. "We'd love to come," Anne replied, "but can we stay 3 days rather than 2? It's a long way from Portland to Wellfleet." The drive is more than 3 hours, and Kate felt she couldn't refuse. The day before their arrival, Anne texted us, "We will take the train from Portland to Boston and the ferry from there to Provincetown. Can you pick us up?" It takes about a half hour to drive from Wellfleet to Provincetown. We left early to meet the boat and find a place to park, since parking is scarce and expensive. Even so, Provincetown is always a kick, a crazy kaleidoscope of people, from artists to fishermen to families on vacation, and a generous sample of flamboyant gay men and butch lesbians. It happened to be Bear Weekend, when huge bearded gay guys wearing farmer's jeans roam the streets and fill the restaurants. I took Anne's roller suitcase so Skip didn't have to carry both his and hers. It was a long walk to the car. "Couldn't you have parked closer to the dock?" Anne was petulant. "Thanks for picking us up," Skip said. "Is there some kind of farmers' convention in town this weekend?" Once settled in the car, Anne's mood improved. "Skip and I are obsessed with pickleball," she said. "Skip plays 4 days a week. I join him on weekends. We entered the Italian Open when we were in Italy and did pretty good. When we got back to Wellfleet, I offered them margaritas. The recipe was old school, 1/3 tequila, 1/3 triple sec, 1/3 lime juice over ice. I salted the rims of the glasses. We sipped the drinks on the deck." "I'm exhausted," Anne said. "It's been a long day," said Skip. "The train is great, but it takes 3 hours. Then the boat is another 2. But Anne didn't mind because she got to flirt with the conductor. "Well, he was cute," Anne said. I laughed, but I thought, really? We're talking about a slightly overweight woman of 68 years. Yet Skip seemed to be serious. We ordered takeout from a local restaurant that has great seafood. My wife and I chose swordfish tacos. Anne got a lobster roll, and Skip ordered fried clams and onion rings. "I'll go pick it up," I said. I paused to see if Skip wanted to tag along, but he was busy reading his phone. I assumed he would offer to split the bill when I got back, but no. "Thanks for picking up the food," he said. "How's the lobster roll?" my wife asked. "Well, it's good," Anne said, "but it isn't like lobster rolls in Maine." When dinner was over, Skip and Anne said they were tired and headed upstairs to bed. I washed the dishes. Story: Morning on the Water by Beth Ford. At the boat slip the next morning, I stood beside a family of 4, an overweight man, a woman who stared in the distance, and a boy and girl, both about 5 years old. As I walked up the ramp, I caught the name of the boat emblazoned in red across the side, Jezebel 4, a bold choice. I took a seat on the opposite side of the boat from the family, whose kids were already starting to get rowdy. While we waited to push off, I looked from Greg to Amber, dressed in matching black long-sleeve shirts with the company logo under their open coats. Perfectly ordinary-looking people. Which of them had chosen the name for the boat? Would Greg and Amber talk to me? I was nobody they would recognize, a freelance writer for travel and leisure magazines. No editor had agreed to buy an article about an oddly named fishing boat on Chincoteague. I resolved to be pleasant and untroublesome for the duration of the trip. If I decided to approach them afterward, I didn't want to give them a reason to say no. Greg narrated while we moved through the water, reciting rehearsed histories of the island and its wildlife. We circled, looking for dolphins. Shiny silverbacks curved in the distance but came no closer. We passed pylons that Greg told us once supported a house along a stretch of private beach that washed away in a storm. Now the wooden supports emerged from the ripples, empty and useless. We traveled to Assateague Island through inlets and marsh dotted with decaying oyster houses. A group of shaggy ponies along the shoreline tugged at marsh grass. They barely noticed the boat floating nearby. I forgot my troubles and smiled. The children ran back and forth on deck, trying to see everything at once. Amber had insisted they wear life vests over the father's protest. The boy climbed on the gunwale, and his sister struggled up beside him. The mother watched impassively, her mind elsewhere. "No climbing," Greg said from the wheel. Amber lifted the girl down to the deck. I looked away to the marsh and the ponies. Then a shout and a splash. The boy had fallen from his perch atop the railing. His brown head bobbed above the surface of the water. The mother cried his name, Billy or Bailey. The father hovered nearby. His enormous stomach showed he was in no shape to dive into the water and swim to the rescue. "Does Bailey know how to swim?" Amber asked. "No," the mother wailed. "Me neither." "God damn it," Greg said flatly, as if he had expected this. He threw the motor into reverse briefly, then killed it. He tore off his coat and jumped from the stern, feet first. Feature: The Glass Slipper by Leonard Singletary. In the tale by Charles Perrault, published in Paris in 1697, Cinderella watches her two stepsisters depart for the ball, then bursts into tears. Her godmother, who happens to be a fairy, says, "You wish you could go to the ball, n'est-ce pas?" Together they change a pumpkin into a coach, 6 mice into horses, a rat into a coachman, and 6 lizards into footmen. At the touch of the wand, the girl's wretched clothes become a dress made of cloth of gold and silver, bedecked with precious stones. Finally, the godmother gives Cinderella a pair of glass slippers, the prettiest in the world. Like the godmother herself, the glass slippers spring from nowhere, and that difference is significant. At midnight, the coach, horses, attendants, and dress all change back to what they were, but the glass slippers remain. Cinderella loses one on the second night of the ball. Running after her, the prince retrieves it, and it serves as proof of the girl's identity. To underscore its importance, Perrault calls the tale Cendrillon, ou la petite pantoufle de verre. For over 3 centuries, most of us have accepted the notion that glass is a suitable material for ladies' footwear, yet a moment's reflection suggests that glass would break under the weight of even the slenderest maiden. In French, the archaic word for squirrel fur is verre, which sounds the same as verre. But a slipper made of fur would stretch, and therefore it would fit a number of feet. The glass slipper is inelastic. It will fit only one person. Near the end of the tale, princesses, duchesses, the whole court, and the 2 stepsisters cannot force their feet into the slipper. A gentleman sent by the prince made Cinderella sit, and bringing the slipper to her little foot, he saw that it went on easily and that it fit like wax. Wax is used to mold things like false teeth and keys, things that demand a close fit. The heroine is marked by her dainty foot size, like the princess who is bruised by a pea placed under several mattresses. Though Perrault does not say so, those feet are clean and nice to look at through the clear glass. Cinderella does not have bunions, crooked toes, or calluses. As she washes dishes, sweeps the stair, and cleans the bedrooms, the household chores she performs without complaint. Does she go barefoot? Does she wear sabots, the wooden clogs of a peasant? Illustrations of the glass slipper show a high-heeled shoe, clear and gleaming, a lovely object to match its description as the prettiest in the world. It suggests the 19th century custom of a male lover who drinks champagne from the adored woman's shoe. In French, as in English, a glass can mean a vessel to drink from. In one sense, then, the glass slipper is like a goblet. Exciting though it is to imagine a sip of sparkling wine from Cinderella's glass slipper, or to delve into the subject of fashion as a fetish, which is to say, a symbolic substitute for the lady herself, a theme that is not so much latent as glaringly obvious in this tale, the text has pantoufle, which can only mean slipper in the sense of an open-heel shoe or mule. The French word for shoe is chaussure or soulier. Book review, The Islands by Dionne Irving. The Islands, a collection of 10 stories by Dionne Irving, is about Jamaican women living somewhere else, such as Florida, Cape Cod, Toronto, London, Panama, France, and Upper Montclair, New Jersey. In big cities, northern climates, and enclaves of white privilege, the women are isolated by their skin color, foodways, and cultural assumptions. Members of the black middle class, what W.E.B. Du Bois called the talented tenth, they carry the Caribbean islands with them. They also carry the memory of their mothers, grandmothers, and other relatives, what the women taught them about proper behavior and about survival in the world. The elders cooked and cleaned and tended white children. Irving's heroines are modern women who teach school or write for a living, screenplays and journalism. They drink wine and cocktails, and they eat takeout food. Lovely, educated, and spoiled by conveniences, they recoil from household tasks or simply prove inept. In Florida Lives, a young professional couple relocate from San Francisco to rural Apopka to run a fern nursery. They live in a small rental house infested by cockroaches and bats. A white trash couple lives next door. The brown couple is overwhelmed by the jungle heat and damp, but in a wonderful comic turn, the hard-drinking, night-fighting neighbors come to the rescue. Ricky clears the bats from the attic, while Crystal shows how to be a wife and mother. In The Cape, Mina moves from Boston to care for her injured and much older husband at their cottage in Wellfleet, Cape Cod. Neil is a college professor of European history, but his disability payments stop, and money was getting tighter and tighter. A local girl, a descendant of free black fishermen and white people who had summer places and could map back lines to England, Mina tries. Unable to stand being cooped up inside, she started working on the porch and yard. It was difficult at first. She had always depended on Neil to do everything. The encounters with white people vary, but Irving is fair to both sides. She saves the best for last. The Gifts is a portrait of a Jamaican nanny in London from 1960 to 1980. Peaches is a capable woman who has a son by her employer, Alistair, an upper-class attorney. It's a tender love affair, frustrated by social convention. Waking Life is even more powerful, a tense reunion in London of a woman with a Jamaican mother who abandoned her at age 3. Book review, The Woods by Janice Obuchowski. Janice Obuchowski lives in Middlebury, Vermont, a village that is home to Middlebury College, where she taught creative writing. Here are 11 stories set in the present in Green Mountain State, a small northern kingdom of independent farms, self-reliant Yankees, and forests, especially forests, full of wild animals like deer and bears, trails that mislead, oncoming darkness, and death. The woods, as Obuchowski calls them, are both real and enchanted, lovely and dangerous. One story is simply titled Monsters, as seen by a teenage girl from Boston. Mountain Shade begins, "She did not believe in ghosts. She lived in mountain shade. Her mountain did not freeze time. Instead, it offered up another existence, some space rough and strange and indifferent to longing." Her philosophy professor husband dies at age 58, and on a walk in the woods, she gets seriously lost. Self-Preservation is an old-fashioned ghost story in which Lisette, a depressed young faculty wife, walks in the woods behind her house with Jennifer. The women in Lisette's book club are shocked. They tell her Jennifer committed suicide there. Obuchowski is coy about proper names and places, but the location is always Middlebury, the village and college. The lake she mentions is Lake Champlain. The unnamed poet is Robert Frost, of course, irascible and legendary. And the surrounding country is recognizable as New England, with its cold, snowy winters, lovely spring breezes, and bright fall foliage. The people are mainly academic intellectuals, young and old, who came from New York or California. The unnamed narrator of the first story, The Cat, is one of these. a young writing instructor whose jobs last a year or two as she tries and fails to write her own novel. As winter arrives, a stray cat tries to move into her apartment. She refuses, worries she has condemned the cat to death, then finds in spring that her awful neighbors downstairs took it in. She has misjudged them. Now she must move on to the next teaching job. A few natives are thrown in for local color. The Orams are a pair of adult brothers, unmarried and rustic, neighbors and loners. Jasper and Wyatt go in for jokes, which mainly constitute the meanness they wish to inflict on you. The practical jokes they play on each other escalate to a murderous climax as the village watches and comments like a Greek chorus. We don't know what will happen next. We know what will happen next. News from Hapsburg, Antique Roses. At sunrise on a clear day in May, a silver-gray explorer with the windows rolled down prowled the streets of Hapsburg, Virginia. A chorus of birds sang their hymn to dawn. The morning breeze wafted the scent of roses. From a genuine damask, the driver thought. He parked on a side street, tall, gray-haired and bearded, heavier than his doctor would like. He emerged clad in khaki pants, a fishing vest, and a pork-pie hat. The fishing vest bristled with loops and pockets for string, knives, clamps, pincers, small plastic bags, rolls of tape, vials, test tubes, and a spray water bottle. In a holster on his belt, he wore a pruning clipper. He strode a shadowy lane, following his nose. He turned a corner to face a large clapboard house, surely one of the best in town. A wrought iron fence surrounded a magnificent garden. Lilac, hydrangea, pink cherry, white crabapple, purple iris, red peony, blue columbine, and yellow daylily jostled for space. A shrub rose climbed an arbor beyond. From the street, he suspected it was an antique rose, an heirloom variety, bred from old stock more than a century ago. These roses scorned disease and drought to blossom again and again. They might blossom only once a year, but they were worth the wait and far more fragrant than modern hybrids. A dedicated gardener in the 1800s had chosen them from a nursery catalog, paid dearly for them, and placed them in the right location. Amid the multicolored splendor, the tall rosebush of dark green leaves foamed with white blooms. The flower looked to be double and cupped. Even from here, the perfume was strong. Could it be a rose he had only read about, the sensation of Paris in 1832? The superintendent of the Luxembourg Gardens named it for his wife, Madame Hardy. He pushed the gate. The rusty hinges shrieked. He padded up the walk and peered at the house. No sign of life in the windows, no lights or movement. He crossed a patch of grass that was evenly mowed. The lower stems of the white rose were gnarled and brown, as thick as a forearm, with fearsome thorns. The upper stems were green and springy. The blossoms at close range were lovelier than he imagined and abundant beyond belief. He plunged his face into a cluster of white and inhaled. The effect was like a drug. His heart raced and his head floated. For this, he woke in the dark. For this, he forsook his warm bed to drive for miles on deserted country roads. He glanced right and left. In the grip of emotion, he saw nothing. He heard nothing as he reached behind for the pruning clipper at his hip. He slipped the catch on the tool. He positioned the curved blade above the junction of two stems. He squeezed. Instead of a gentle snip, he heard the click of a gun safety catch. He raised his eyes. A few feet away, a rifle rested in the arms of an old woman in slippers and dressing gown, a woman with wrinkled cheeks and wild white hair. Steely blue eyes sighted along the barrel. Somewhere overhead, a mockingbird warbled. "Hold it right there, mister." "Don't shoot!" "Reach for the sky." He complied, one hand holding the clipper and the other holding a rose.